So this film was called Accounts and Accountability, and it was really not just a question of accounts, but also a question of accountability of all that happens in a democracy. Some of the slogans, just like this film shows how much people actually caught on to the nerve centers of power and saw how powerful information can be. Some of those slogans take one through a very long journey, because we want to spend about half an hour at least discussing, so we'll just spend, Aruna and I, about 10 minutes each with taking you through a part of this journey. So slogans do that very quickly. The first slogan was, as Aruna talks about in the film, people used to say, this is government money, let it burn. Who cares about it? And this is said all over the world. But then when people found they were not getting their wages, just as that woman in that film found that she wasn't getting her wages, they realized it's my money. And then collectively it's our money. So the first slogan that came about was, Hamara Paisa, Hamara Hisab. Our money, our accounts. That is actually the defining slogan of the Right to Information movement in India, used all over. And it's just 4 words which so powerfully describe and explain in a democratic framework. Whose money is it? Whose decisions are they? Whose resources are they? And those are the much larger questions that are facing us in India even today. The slogan carried on to, ये पैसे हमारे आपके नहीं किसी के बाप के. This money is yours and mine, nobody's feudal property. So it's not just a question of the accounts and accountability of it, but also how that money will be spent, who takes the decisions. And the institutions themselves. ये सरकार हमारे आपकी नहीं किसी के बाप की. This government is yours and mine, nobody's feudal property. ये देश हमारे आपका नहीं किसी के बाप का. This country is yours and mine, nobody's feudal property.
How do you see political engagement? Do you see it as forming a political party? Do you see it as people engaging with political structures and democratic structures at every level? Do you see civil society as one mass unit? Do you see it divided in India by class, by caste, by gender, by location, by access to wealth, by access to resources, by access to services? We feel that there is no such thing as one civil society in my country, because it's difficult. I don't think it exists anywhere, but especially not in India, because if a friend whom you saw in the film walked into Delhi, into a mall or a hotel, he'd be just thrown out. So we see civil society perhaps very restricted to people who have access to education, who have access to resources, who have access to money, but the rest of us are just the people. So in a country so skewed as India is, you really have to think of multiple ways in which one can extract power from the state where it's misusing and abusing the power, and how you can establish your rights in a country divided also by religion, where 2002, 10 years ago, we had the genocide in Gujarat, where one community was targeted and killed. You can kill any community. As we left India, people from the northeast were targeted. They fled in thousands from the southern states, from Chennai, from Karnataka, because they were beaten up because there was a conflict in Assam between people who came from Bangladesh, they said came from Bangladesh, and the native Assamese population. So in India, which is so plural, so completely divided in language, in culture, in methods of expression, we feel that these battles must be fought both locally and centrally. You cannot have a battle that's only fought in New Delhi, which can define what should be done, and therefore the participation of people is terribly important, and the engagement with politics through various structures should then bring in these few basic principles which this film and what Nikhil said clearly delineated. One is that we must have access to all information that relates to ourselves, and we must have the power to hold the government accountable. And there we have to stop, because what will be the specific location of the people, what will be their specific problem? If it's women in Karnataka, today there is a model policing and social policing that will not allow Indian women to wear jeans or to wear trousers or to wear modern clothes, because they feel that that's the way you're targeted for sexual crimes. That's what was said in Guwahati, in the northeast, when a girl was attacked. So there are layers and layers of problems. So in which case, a law or a legislation which assumes to answer every single question will not work. We'll have to have laws specifically addressed. Narrow, because you can't make the state too powerful. The moment you make the state too powerful, then you come back to square one, where you become victims of state atrocities even more than you may have. There's no guarantee that that structure, which is with its hundreds of thousands of officials, will not be as corrupt as the system as it is today. Because the fabric of people will be the same, the social fabric is the same, people are the same, we don't change because we go from one structure to the next. Basically, political engagement is essential. Then the big issue becomes, are you going to become a political party, or are you going to engage with politics? Are you to engage with governance? Is engagement with governance or engagement with political parties surrendering your independence and becoming a part of that political structure, or is it important? Many of us feel now that we have lost out because we've seen government and the state and us as mutually exclusive entities. We now feel that we have to engage. And ultimately, democracy is pluralistic. Democracy is multiple. Democracy means expressing your points of view at many levels. And if you take the Indian Constitution and you read Ambedkar, one vote, one individual is not sufficient. We have to talk about economic and social values. We have to fight for economic equality and social equality. Today, what you see as the various battles in India is because of extraordinary economic inequality and the inequality of power. Because you say that a group of people can decide what kind of economics India needs, or that you need to put an atomic power plant. From 1 million people refuse to have that power plant. Their voice is subdued by a group of people who feel that the atomic power plant must be located there. Now, who wins and what is democracy?